So in my day job, I've been a solution consultant for about 8 years now. And before that, I was a training professional for many years. And it was during that time when I was a training professional that I kind of got interested in property investment. I remember meeting up with 𝗟𝗶𝗳𝗍𝗍 at the time in the Midlands. This was more than 10 years ago. And it was Chris who explained to me what NGU was all about and what they could offer me. One of the tenants at one of the properties raised concerns about a leaky roof. So I'll keep this story, which is quite lengthy, as short as I can. So NGU doing their job informed me and arranged for a contractor to investigate the problem. The outcome was they established that the entire roof at this property needed replacing at an estimated cost of just over £5,000. Now, normally I just accepted the NGU recommendations, but I thought, well, the extent of the problem, the cost, I thought, you know what, I'll just do a little bit of digging around myself and compare one or two additional estimates. So that's what I did, and I found a local firm in the area called Rooftite, and they gave me a quote of about £3,400. I guess with hindsight, maybe I should have been a little bit wary at that point, thinking, oh, they can do the job that much cheaper. But I decided to proceed, and that was the start of my problems. So first, they hadn't done properly their investigations. They hadn't visited the property to establish the scope of the job. So one morning, several days later, they arranged for them to get going on the job, and they phoned me to say, oh, yeah, it's actually a bigger job than they envisaged because of the structure of the roof and the way it was formed. So they then said, we can't do it for 3,400. It's going to be over £5,000, which was very similar to the NGU quote that I'd obtained. They also said, and I felt they were putting me under a bit of duress here, oh, well, we're already here. We've already got the scaffolding up. We're ready to go. We're ready to start now. So I felt some kind of pressure there, and somewhat reluctantly, I said, okay, well, go ahead with it. And they did the job in a fashion. And it wasn't until a couple of weeks later, I paid the half of it and then half remaining when they'd finished the job. A couple of weeks later, tenant got back in touch with NGU saying they'd still got a leaky roof. And at this point, my heart sunk. And they'd also done a couple of other things. So during the job, they said they'd found a little attic window. And they said, well, you know, it's not performing much of a function. So we can just slate it over if you want, just like did it with the rest of the roof. And I agreed to that. So this hadn't been done properly to any kind of good standard. When the tenant complained, they said, oh yeah, there was a little window in the attic. And it looks like they just put a bit of plastic over it. Well, they had some stormy weather, the plastic came adrift, all the elements came into the loft and started spoiling some of their contents that had been stored in the loft. The whole thing was an absolute mess. But several other things. They'd offered me at the outset a 25-year guarantee. That never materialised. I chased and chased and chased. 9 months later, I got a guarantee that was for 15 years. So there were discrepancies all the way through. So I started a small claims court action. That took an awful lot of time, didn't seem to get anywhere. And then somehow, I can't remember how, I got contacted by Bill England from Cleveland Borough Council. And he eventually came to my aid. And with his support, we brought this firm to book. In the interim, I had to pay another £5,000 for NGU to put right the damage that had been done. So the whole thing was pretty much an unmitigated disaster. But we've got some justice at the end of the day. That's how I feel. It's a comparatively satisfactory outcome because the rogue firm mentioned ended up in court, and there were 3 named roofers from this company. And I learned just a few weeks ago that they've all been found guilty of various offences, and all 3 of them have received custodial sentences for several years, each of them. It still leaves an unsavoury taste in my mouth. They're also banned from being company directors for a period of 10 years, I understand. My roof got properly replaced, and the house was eventually sold. but I was scarred from the experience. Well, yes, I suppose, and there's a wry grin appearing on my face because, yeah, if I look back, what do they say about hindsight? If I'd have simply just accepted the original quote from the NGU, tried and trusted contractor, my guess is I wouldn't have had this problem to have to work through. But again, I think the circumstances, as I've described, led me down that route for reasonable reasons, I think. But yeah, looking back, I should have just taken the NGU quote and just gone with it. It seemed like a lot of money at the time, but it probably would have been money well spent and wisely spent. For 10 years, I've had very good experiences of working with all the staff. The staff always seem very professional. They're always there to address your queries, to help you with every step of that property ownership path that you go down. So whether that's acquiring properties, maintaining the properties, and then ultimately selling the properties. And everything's worked out pretty well over the 10 years. We've had a few rogue tenants along the way. We've also had some very good tenants along the way. But that's part and parcel of the thing that you get into, I think. So yeah, I wouldn't have any hesitation in recommending NGU in the future.